What is up, guys? Dzeeff here, and this past weekend I went to the Columbus Regional Qualifier. You probably already saw my friend Ricky's deck profile. He got a top 8, and in today's video I want to show you my own deck profile as well as tell you some funny stories from the event. So first off, the title of this video, I played Dark Bribe at the Regional Qualifier. The reason I did this was because against my better judgment, I put a poll out there that said, should I play a card from Why Nobody Plays in my deck at the next regional I go to? Overwhelmingly, people voted yes. Like, there was 10,000 votes for yes with like a 90 to a 10% ratio. So I decided that the two that I was sort of narrowed down to were Magic Cylinder or Dark Bribe. Both of those kind of work in an Altergeist strategy. Actually, Dark Bribe, and the reason I chose it in the first place, has been seeing some play in the Frog strategy recently. I still think that Wiretap is better for Altergeist because they usually have, they can usually recover from cards like Evenly Match better than Frogs can, because you can still just keep one trap and then keep a Faker in your hand. If you have like monsters, you can use spoofing to put them back so you don't lose so many cards. But Frogs really can't recover from Evenly Match so much. But Red Reboot equally hurts both strategies. So I played Dark Bribe instead of Wiretap. That was basically what I did, and it was okay. I didn't play against the decks. People just weren't playing the Dark Warrior or the Goki deck at this regional qualifier. I don't think any of them topped. I didn't really see any of them at the top tables. I was at the top tables all day, which was very exciting. I felt I haven't felt this good about a deck in a long time. I mean, Altergeist, it's just like, it's a deck that I love playing so much, and I felt like this, or I felt like I was playing perfectly all day. It reminded me of the ARG Invitational, where I felt like every single round I was totally in control of the game, and that's how I felt at this last regional as well. But as far as Dark Bribe goes, instead of Wiretap, it does have some uses that Wiretap doesn't have against the decks like Dark Warrior and like Goki. Most notably, you can use it against cards like Twin Twisters, not just Red Reboot and Evenly Match, which Wiretap is only good against in those matchups because they don't play other trap cards. Other than that, though, I mean, Wiretap is so much better in the Control v Control matchups, which I played a few of. I played 2 mirror matches, and those matchups, Wiretap is just infinitely better because you can just shuffle back the card, and because those matchups are so dependent on like card advantage and not so much like tempo, that it really screws you up if you use a card like Dark Bribe and you just give your opponent free advantage in sort of exchange for tempo, because anything that they draw is probably just about as good as what they activated in the first place, unlike when you're playing against the decks that are siding Red Reboot and Evenly Match and Twin Twisters, where they might not draw into one of those cards. Other than that, though, some funny things that happen. If you watch Ricky's profile, you know that we hit a deer on the way down there, which was not very fun, but we're okay. Actually, Ricky drove perfectly, which is really good. We could have swerved into oncoming traffic. We could have like went into a ditch, but Ricky knew what he was doing. If you guys don't know, when you come across like an animal in the road, as much as it sucks, like what you're supposed to do is just hit it head on so that you don't go into other traffic or fall into like a tree or run into something. So luckily his car, I mean, I drive just like a little car, but he drives like a truck, so it didn't actually damage the car too bad. The bumper got pretty beat up, but like the windshield is fine, the lights were fine. The deer was not fine, but that's okay. It sacrificed itself for us to go to the regional. As far as the actual regional went, you guys were great. Any of the fans that came up to me, I think in particular, it was really cool. At the end of the day, there were a couple fans that came up and specifically said that I helped them get their invite at this regional. That's just so cool. It's really cool to see players, especially the ones that are playing Altergeist. There was one person, the last fan that I talked to, said that this was his first regional qualifier. He got his invite. He was playing Altergeist. That is just, I love having such a big impact on you guys. I won't gush about it too much, but it's just really cool to know that I make a difference. I know I get a lot of sort of negative feedback from people that don't want to get better at the game, but to know that I can help some casual players become competitive players and get that invite and go to the WCQ, it's just fantastic. As far as my own record, I punted the last round. I could have got a top 8. It would have been really cool if Ricky and I both got top 8s. Basically, I lost round 2 to the mirror match. Really good player, Larry Musgrove. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, I'm sorry. Larry, though, he's a very good player. He's topped a lot of events. You guys might have heard of him. He was playing Altergeist, but he was playing Trap Trick, which I did not play, so he had access to way more copies of Heavy Stormduster than I did. And actually, the other mirror match I played also was playing Trap Trick, and that mirror match is really hard if I don't have Trap Trick, and they do, because Heavy Stormduster is basically the auto win in that particular mirror match. But he just totally outplayed me. But other than that game, or other than that match, actually, and we still went to game 3. I just felt like I was completely on board with everything my deck was doing. I actually put a lot of time to this deck. It felt good to be playing Altergeist. I just love Altergeist so much. It's one of those decks that it might not seem like it has a high skill cap, but it definitely does. There are some pretty advanced combos. Once you figure out, or once you realize that, like, anytime that you can have the Mulaseek and you can make Hexia, you basically have access to every single card in your entire deck. I think that really adds to, like, okay, there's so many different paths that you can take, and there's a lot of fine details and nuance to the deck that a lot of people don't realize, and a lot of other decks don't have. So that's why I love Altergeist so much. But yeah, I was at top tables the entire day. It was a 9-round tournament, so I was X1 going to the last round. I easily won game 1. I got the most ridiculous, I mean, I won't go into it too much. I got the most ridiculous slow play warning I've ever gotten. It's also the only slow play warning I've ever gotten, because, spoiler alert, I do not slow play, and it was ridiculous. Just long story short, basically we asked the judge a ruling. While he was giving the ruling, he was talking really slow, and then I waited for him to stop talking, and then I picked up my deck, and he said, you have to make a play, and it was like 10 seconds, and then I was like, okay, and then I added the card with Hextia. And he's like, seeing I said that you had to make a play, you're gonna get a warning for this. And it was, my opponent was like, what the heck's going on? I was like, what the heck's going on? I've never received a slow play warning ever in my entire life. I don't slow play. It was just ridiculous. I don't get like a game loss for that or anything. It's just a warning. But clearly he just wanted to give me. It's so frustrating because I try to play as clean as possible. So it's a little flustered, but I still won that game. And I was like, okay, I just gotta win one of the next 2 games, and I'll get this regional top. I wanted it so bad. I lost the second game, and then in the third game I made a critical error. My opponent was playing Cyber Dragons. Really fantastic guy. He said that he watched my videos. I don't know if you'll watch this video. I love playing against this guy. I played against him. This is my 3rd time in the last year of playing against him. I've won the first 2 times, which unfortunately were not for top 8 finishes. This one was, but I couldn't be happier with who won. Well, I mean, I could have been happier because I couldn't have been happier to see my opponent win the game. Like, if it would have been anyone else, I would have been super salty. And even though I'm disappointed in myself, I'm actually really happy for him. He was playing Cyber Dragons. He's a really nice guy. But basically, I made the critical error of deciding to go second in game 3. He's playing Cyber Dragons. He's playing a going second strategy. He won the die roll and chose to go second in the first game. I figured that usually that deck doesn't have a good first turn board unless they just open the nuts and you don't open hand traps. I also figured because when I go first, he's siding into cards like Red Reboot and Twin Twisters and Evenly Match. All those cards that just completely ruin my strategy. So I just wanted to go second, deal with this board. I didn't think that could be too bad. I can deal with one Cyber Dragon Infinity. That's not really that difficult. He opened the nuts. I did not open any hand traps. Actually, my hand, so the hard part for me personally, that my hand was ridiculous going first. It was like, it would have been set 3 back row and then summon Marionetta to set a 4th back row with a multi-faker in hand. I would have easily won, and that's why, for me personally, it's so disappointing to lose that match. But he opened the nuts. He had Machine Dupe, he had Galaxy Soldier, so he ended with Infinity, Nightmare Griffin, which prevents non-linked monster special summon effects from activating, so it totally turns off multi-faker. And then also he had the Cybernetic Trap card that non-targeting blows up like 3 cards on my side of the field. I almost played through it. I couldn't quite do it, but he won, and he deserves the win, but it was really frustrating looking back on it because he didn't open Twin Twisters, he didn't open Red Reboot and all that kind of stuff. If I would have went first, I would have topped, and I'll sort of, going forward, I think even against the going second strategies, I think I'm just going to stick the game plan and still go first. But other than that very, very critical error in the very last game of the very last round to get the top 8, other than that, I felt like I played pretty much perfectly the entire day. I was extremely comfortable playing my deck. I always felt like I was in control of my games. That's why I love Altergeist so much. But that's pretty much my tournament report. I had a lot of fun. Oh, this format is amazing. Like, I know that the Rongo Bongo deck is what everyone's afraid of. Almost no one was playing that at the top tables. The top tables were so diverse. It was like insane. My friend Ricky, who topped, he played against like Crusadia in the last round. That was X1. Every table had like different matchups. There were so few mirror matches. I love this format. Like, it's so great. Maybe people like figure out how to break the Rongo Bongo deck going forward, but at least at this regional, it seems like they all got knocked out pretty early on just to like hand traps or going second and stuff like that. So I love this format. Great time to be playing competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Anyway though, let me just switch angles here and we'll take a look at the deck profile. I always ramble on way too much in these deck profiles of these videos, so I'll try to make this one as fast as possible. I just love talking about Altergeist so much. Anyway, I played Altergeist. The actual main deck is not that different from YCS Niagara, although I spent a lot of time on the side deck. The main theory behind how this deck is built, and you'll kind of see that with some of the choices in the main deck and the side deck. In any given matchup, I wanted to be able to side out either 3 or 6 cards, so I could kind of keep track of stuff. So like that's why you'll see like 3 of tech options in the main and side deck. So depending on which matchup that you were playing, you could just easily, sort of without thinking too much, just side out the 3 bad cards and then side in the 3 good cards. I think side decks are like one of the most important parts about Yu-Gi-Oh! You'll always play more games sided than you will unsided, and yet a lot of people don't talk about that or even think about that. They just put together decks and they get to the event and they're like, man, I don't even have like enough cards to take out to put these cards in. But in this deck, I really wanted to try to have always non-engine cards that I could take out to put in the side deck options. Anyway, 3 copies of Marionetta, 3 copies of Multifaker, 3 copies of Miloseek, 2 copies of the guy that I can't pronounce, never will be able to, and then 1 copy of Concrete. Those are all really, really standard at this point. Like I said, you guys have watched a lot of Altergeist profiles from me already, so I won't explain that stuff too much. I'll just kind of talk about the different stuff. And then 3 copies of Ash Blossom. It's the most generic hand trap right now. You don't want to get too fancy with stuff because, like I said, this format's awesome, and like I played against so many random strategies that like if you had specific stuffs like Ogre or especially like Reaper or even Ghost Spell, like some matchups you play against those cards will just be absolutely dead. Ash Blossom is never dead. There's not a deck out there that doesn't search. People even think that like this deck doesn't search that often, but you can always hit the spoofing and it's really, really powerful. So that's really nice. Never Ash the Multifaker. That's a bad idea. Just a life lesson right there for you. Coming from an Altergeist player. 2-Pot Duality. This might be the last event that I play this card, unless I go to the Rosemont Regional in January. Reason being, we're getting that insane Pot of Indulgence card. We don't know what the TCG name is going to be, but that card is ridiculous. It's literally Pot of Greed in this deck. Very, very cool. And this card, though, I like this card a lot more than Desires in this strategy. I don't like banishing any Altergeist cards. I feel like you need all of them to sort of have the grind game. This deck really does have a good mid and late game, so you want to just get there without banishing like all of your combo pieces, which I know I'm like a huge fan of Desires in like every other deck, but in this deck in particular, I think Duality is just fine. 2 copies is just fine. This card is on the first turn, it's about the same power level as Desires. It's just as the game goes on, this card gets really bad, where Desires gets better as the game goes on. I played 2 Secret Village, 1 Metaverse. This is like okay, like it's way better than when I played 5 at YCS Niagara, which was definitely the wrong choice. This was really bad in the first half of the day. I played 2 Altergeist and a Frog player, and that was really tough drawing these cards in those matchups. But in the later rounds, I was playing against more Skyscrapers and Thunder Dragons, and these cards just dominate those matchups, so they were really good. So about 50-50. It just depends on how the metagame shifts, really. And then 3 copies of Spoofing. Shout out to the fan that gave me 2 super rares. I couldn't find a 3rd super rare, so I'll have to order one online, but thank you so much. Like, a fan just came up to me and gave these to me. I was super grateful. Super rares are always better than rares, so 10 out of 10. Would play super rare spoofings again. 3 copies of Protocol, 1 copy of Manifestation, the Dzeeff special. A lot of people play different ratios of these. I like Protocol the most because you can just flip it and summon Multifaker. Manifestation needs like a little bit of setup to do that, so I don't like playing 2 Manifestation as much. And I didn't play Trap Trick, so Trap Trick's good with 2 Manifestation. We played 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence, and also the sleeve is like marks that looks dented. That was weird. This card's the best in this deck, more so than any other deck. You get the most value out of it in this deck. You can play other decks without Impermanence, but it's really hard playing Altergeist without it, just because it's so good in this deck to trigger Multifaker on your opponent's turn. And then 3 copies of Solemn Strike, 1 copy of Judgment. I did not play Warning. I don't think Warning is that much better than Strike, and Strike is just a lot less life points. It's a quarter less life points, but I felt that like the only cases where Warning's actually better is like against Soul Charge or Monster Reborn. In general, though, like those just like for that to actually work, like you have to draw 1 of, and your opponent has to draw 1 of, and you have to draw them both at the same time, and like it's just rough. So I think Strike's just way more versatile, and Strike's good for hitting hand traps, which is super important. 2 copies of Duster. This is what I changed from Niagara. We're not playing the 5 copies of the Secret Villages because I kept drawing them against the back row matchups. This was good. It wasn't enough, but it's fine. Like I don't know. I wish I could play Trap Trick, but I just don't know where I would find the room for it. I guess I'd have to cut the Secret Villages, but they're just so strong in game 1 against Skystakers and Thunder Dragons and all that kind of stuff. I don't know, but this card's really good. It's like how you win the mirror match. And then 3 copies of Rivalry. Man, this deck like saw so many rarity upgrades since the last time I played it. I stopped stop playing it and everything gets rarity bumped. So we have Super Rivalry, we've got Super Spoofings. This card's really strong against everything except Thunder Dragons and the Mirror Match, obviously. Even against the Thunder Dragon deck, though, sometimes you can kind of get them because they want to summon, like, sometimes they like go for plays where they have to summon non-thunder monsters, and you can kind of like cheese them with the rivalry. Obviously, like, side it out though, it's not very good games 2 and 3. It's just not very good in general, but it's not like the worst card, unlike in the Mirror Match where it's actually terrible. And then one win condition, which is pretty cool. For the extra deck, which I think is like almost the same as the last couple events, so I'll just kind of go through it fast. The only monsters that ever matter are the Hexias and the Link Kribo. None of these other cards matter. The reason they don't matter is that the turn that you summon Multi-Faker, or the turn that you activate its effect to summon from deck, you can't summon any non-Altergeist cards. So this is all you ever make, basically. So we play, like, I'm just gonna like go through these as fast as possible. That card that you never make, these nightmares that you never make, this card that you never make, this card you never make, these really cool cards you never make, this card that I wanted to make sometimes because in time this deck struggles to put out damage more than 500 from the Milliseek direct attack. But with this you can summon it. Marionetter can pop like another Altergeist and summon another Marionetter, and you can make this card. I felt it was okay. It never came up. I never went into time. Well, I went into time once, but like the game was already over. Like I was like +7 in card advantage. And then I played one copy of Izzle and one copy of Heavy Metal's Electromite. Ever since Niagara, I gotta play this card in my extra deck because I lost to 2 Pendulums in the early rounds of that tournament. But I never played against either of those decks, so those actually did not come up. But they might have, and if they would have came up, it would have been. Those matchups are really tough. But it seems like Rongo Bongo is not as popular as a lot of people thought they would be. Anyway, we have 3 copies of Reaper, which I never sided into, 2 Border, which is just for the Mirror Match, and I guess you can side it in going first against Thunder Dragons. I wouldn't really recommend it though, because they can kind of play around it sometimes, and they might side stuff like Mind Control. Anyway, we have 3 evenly match. It's like the win condition when you go second, because you once again, any cards that you can act from your hand that are traps, you get so much value out of in this deck because you can summon Faker, more so than any other tournament that I've played in. I drew Faker in evenly match, and I drew Faker in Impermanence like a lot more than I ever have in a tournament. So that was really cool. That kind of was ridiculous. I played 3 Forbidden, a Papa Crypta. This card's crazy. It basically just wipes the entire board of the Thunder Dragons. I know people think Thunder Dragons is a good matchup, and on paper it is, because like you don't search a lot, and also you can bounce Colossus. You can bounce any of them with the level 2 guy, and you can send them with Milliseek. How it turns out though, when you go second, you lose almost every single time, because they just make double Colossus Titan. You can't deal with all that stuff. They just kill your stuff before you even get a chance to like do anything. So unless they like don't open well, which is pretty unlikely because everyone's playing so many starters now, but assuming they open like even just a couple cards, you can just wipe their entire board with this, and it's just an auto win. So this card is insane. And then 2 copies of Summon Limit. This was the best card in my entire side deck, and maybe the best change that I made to the entire deck overall. This is like it's like a card you put in going first against every single non-Mirror Match or non-Sky Striker matchup, any kind of rogue decks. This deck can kind of struggle against rogue decks because you have so many like specific floodgates. This one is just way too powerful, and the thing about this is that if they already summon twice and then you flip Summon Limit, it counts as 2 summons. So then they just have to pass. It's amazing. With a 4th copy of Secret Village, and then the 1 copy of Dark Bribe. I know it seems like disingenuous that I only play 1 copy. I really tried to play 2 copies. I really tried to like main deck a copy. Honestly though, I just couldn't find room. This was just going to be the wiretap. It was okay. In all the times that I activated it at this tournament though, it could have been wiretap and it would have been a lot better. So I wish I just played wiretap, but it's for the memes, and it does have some applications against like Twin Twisters and stuff. Anyway though, hopefully you guys enjoyed today's discussion video and deck profile. I really like this format. I really can't wait to go to more events. This event was kind of far away from me. We actually went a day early and stayed overnight on Friday, but I just really wanted to play new format Yu-Gi-Oh! And I'm really glad I did. I'll see you guys later though. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.